Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into the core concepts from Week 9 of BTM 440, focusing all on resilience, incident response, and recovery. We're going to explore a massive mindset shift that's happening across organizations right now. Basically, we're moving away from traditional perimeter-based IT security, that old-school idea of building a massive digital moat, and we're stepping into the reality of true organizational resilience. Let's dig in and see how this completely changes the way we handle a crisis. So let's kick things off with a pretty tough question. What actually happens when your preventative security fails? Because let's face it, the hard truth is that the whole idea of perfect security is totally dead. Modern attacks bypass those traditional defenses literally every single day. The new reality, it requires an assume breach mindset. We just have to assume the bad guys are already inside or, eventually will be. The real question is, how do we survive it when it happens? Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the shift to organizational resilience. Second, SIEM, the detection engine. Third, the 6 phases of incident response. Fourth, BCP, the managerial spine. Fifth, RTO and RPO explained. And finally, DRP, restoring the infrastructure. All right, part 1, the shift to organizational resilience. Look, there's a massive contrast between these two approaches. Preventative security is all about avoiding disasters. It's like putting deadbolts on your doors. Great to have, for sure. But organizational resilience actually embraces that assume breach thinking. And no, that's not just being paranoid. It's pure risk realism. If we just assume we'll catch every single attacker at the perimeter, we end up building incredibly fragile systems. But if we assume a breach is going to happen, we build systems focused on blast radius reduction and actual recovery discipline. It's really all about taking a punch and staying on your feet. And that brings us to what's known as the boom. That explosion right there represents the exact split second a disruption or a cyber disaster strikes your network. Now, preventative security lives entirely to the left of the boom. But true resilience, that is measured by how well an organization detects, responds to, and ultimately survives right at the boom and immediately after it. Which leads us to Section 2, SIEM, the detection engine. So how do we even know the boom has happened in the first place? Well, we use a SIEM, Security Information and Event Management. Honestly, think of it like a giant operational monitoring vacuum. It centralizes all the cybersecurity relevant data from across the entire organization. It takes all that chaotic log data from your servers, your firewalls, your apps, and it actually makes it usable for your security team, pretty much in near real time. Practically speaking, a SIEM collects and aggregates log data from incredibly diverse sources. Then it normalizes that data, basically standardizing it, so it can all be analyzed uniformly. By using statistical analysis and machine learning, it detects these hidden patterns of malicious activity. It connects the dots between events that might seem totally unrelated to a human. Finally, it provides automated alerts. It is literally the eyes and ears of the network, and it drastically reduces the time it takes to detect an incident. Okay, Section 3, the 6 phases of incident response. So the SIEM alert triggers. Total chaos starts, right? Well, what next? We rely on the Cybersecurity Incident Response Procedure, or CIRP. This is broken down into 6 sequential triage steps. First is preparation, establishing readiness before anything bad even happens, like training your teams. Second, detection and analysis, using tools like the SIEM to actually validate the event. Third is containment, stopping the bleeding by isolating those compromised hosts. Fourth is eradication, removing the threat entirely, like deleting the malware. Fifth is recovery, carefully restoring clean data and bringing the systems back online. And finally, lessons learned, updating your policies so this exact same attack never works again. Moving on to Section 4, BCP, the managerial spine. Now, while your IT team is deep in the trenches battling through those 6 response phases, what's the rest of the business doing? They rely on business continuity planning, or BCP. If incident response is the technical firefight, the BCP is the managerial spine holding the whole organizational body together. Its primary goal is to minimize downtime and protect critical assets so the business can actually keep serving its customers, even while the servers are literally on fire in the background. But here's the thing. A BCP can't just be built out of thin air. You have to first conduct a BIA, a business impact analysis. This is the critical first step where you map out all your dependencies, what processes are essential, what happens if they fail. And we have to remember that harm over time is non-linear. A 2-hour outage, that might just be a minor annoyance, But that exact same outage stretching to 2 weeks, that could mean missing payroll or violating major regulations. Suddenly, that annoyance becomes an existential threat to the whole company. That brings us to Section 5, RTO and RPO explained. During that impact analysis we just talked about, we defined two absolutely vital metrics. These act as the heartbeat of any recovery strategy. First is recovery time objective, or RTO, and that's all about time down. It's the absolute maximum amount of time the business can afford to be offline before the damage is irreparable. Then we have recovery point objective, or RPO, which is all about lost data. It's the maximum age of data the business can afford to lose. So if your RPO is 4 hours, that transaction data absolutely must be backed up at least every 4 hours. Easy way to remember it? RTO is time, RPO is data. And finally, Section 6, DRP, restoring the infrastructure. Once the business clearly knows its RTO and RPO limits, IT can finally build out the technical strategy. Now, it's really crucial to delineate between these two plans. The business continuity plan focuses entirely on the business, maintaining day-to-day activities, rerouting supply chains, managing PR, keeping operations running. But the disaster recovery plan, or DRP, that's the technical execution. It focuses entirely on IT, repairing hardware, restoring data from backups, and getting the network back up. The DRP literally exists just to support the broader business goals that were defined by the BCP. So why does all of this meticulous planning actually matter? Well, because a robust plan isn't just about saving your servers. It's about people and promises. It ensures supply continuity and the physical safety of your personnel during a real emergency. We live in a world full of ransomware and supply chain disruptions, and an organization's credibility is measured by how well it navigates a crisis. Vendors, employees, and customers, they all depend on these plans working so everyone can get through the disruptions safely. So let's leave off with a provocative question for you to consider. Is your organization treating resilience as a continuous, executive discipline? Or are they just crossing their fingers and hoping that preventative security holds up? Look, surviving a modern disaster requires both technical agility on the ground and serious managerial foresight at the top. We can't just build a wall anymore. We have to know exactly what to do when someone breaks right through it. Thanks so much for joining this explainer on organizational resilience and recovery. Keep analyzing, keep preparing, and we'll see you in the next one.